Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empire of the Cop podcast. But wait, what's that? Sorry, no, we are the Liverpool Transfer Committee. Forget about Julian Ward, forget about Jörg Schmadtke, forget about William Spearman. It's us three deciding the fate of Liverpool's summer transfer window. We have Flash Score editor Ste Carson. We have Rick, social media legend. How are we all doing today, fellas? Are we looking forward to this transfer shenanigans?
It's the second time I've ever been called a legend, so you've already set me off on a good start.
That's good to hear. How about you, Steve?
The first time was Zane Lowe of all people.
Zane Lowe.
I was absolutely wasted on a night out when I back at uni. I had a polo shirt with a popped collar, those shutter shade glasses, and a strobe light app on my phone. I was an absolute state, but he came up to me and said, "You're a fucking legend," shook my hand and gave me a free t-shirt. So, there's a little bit of Elmo lore.
Well, there you go. What more do you want? Look at that. Don't say we don't provide you enough with this podcast. It's not just the football. But Steve, how's things
Steve.
on your end? I hear that it's rather cramped at the minute.
Yeah, no, it's well, where I'm living at the minute is very hot. We've got a bit of scaffolding work outside, so can't open the balcony, can't open the windows. So it's getting very hot in the kitchen, you could say, literally. I'm hoping that we can keep a little bit cool under the pressure. So much so I'm actually sat next to my open fridge in an attempt to cool me down at the minute. It's just what you've got to do, So hopefully that can impact my decision making here today.
There'll be environmental warnings attached to this video before you know it when it goes live on YouTube.
Steve has killed a polar bear tonight.
You heard it here first. Environmental dangers, they will be calling us. But yes, no, we're here obviously for a specific reason. We're here to play the transfer committee game, courtesy of the Anfield Wrap and specifically creator John Furlong and the provider of sorting fees and money, Stephen Davies, for the players themselves. I'm going to leave this here for Rick to explain more in further detail.
So I've created this handy-dandy spreadsheet, which I haven't tested. Hopefully it goes without a hitch. But yeah, so basically the rules of the game are that, so you've got step one, you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract renewal. Do we want to extend it? Do we want to renew his contract? Yes or no? What that will do is, so we've got some salary units. So the maximum we can have is 205. That's like the salary budget. We've currently used 188. By extending Trent's contract, he's currently on 8. And I believe if we were to renew it, boom, it takes it up to 12. So that would make him one of the highest paid players at the club, alongside Salah, higher than Van Dijk. So, discuss.
I don't know about you lads, but I think I'm all for it personally. I appreciate, obviously, it takes a chunk out the budget, but the one sort of generational talent we've got in the squad, huge future. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's an easy one. If you could choose one player right now to tie down on a 10-year deal at Liverpool, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold. So whatever the contract renewal is, I think you've got to just go for it.
My only concern, I agree with you. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, but my only concern with it is that it takes him it makes him joint with with Salah as one of the most, as the highest paid player at the club, according to this game anyway. So where does that leave us in terms of the wage structure that we have, the famous wage structure? Because ultimately, he's still quite young. I mean, you can only do this for so long before he's on silly money, and you can't really reel it back from there. So that's my only concern. Again, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. He's a generational talent, like you say. It's just that sort of feeling in the back of my head of like this could slowly go pear-shaped if we give someone that young a salary that's that high. But again, it's a bit of a moot moot topic because we've all agreed. So, shall we move on to the next thing, or do you want to come back at that?
No. I think if it was just any young player, I think there's definitely you definitely could say that, and I think you definitely could say about Trent as well. But like we've all said, he's a generational talent. I think like anyone else looking at the contract hierarchy would sort of realize that Trent is a bit special, and then as time goes on, there could be room. For it to become a little bit ridiculous. But as I say, get him down on a 10-year deal and then just leave him on the current wage. I suppose. I'm sure that'll work.
I mean, a 10-year deal takes him into his 30s, isn't it? So, it's
you
kind of think at that point anyway, when you're looking to renegotiate, maybe he's hit his early 30s or whatever. You're thinking, can he? I don't know. It's a tough one, really. When you're looking at the kind of player he might be, especially with the inverted role. But I think we're all probably in agreement. Yeah, renew his contract.
All right. Okay. So the second stage we've got here is we've got a few players here. We've got Joe Gomez, Tyler Morton, Fabinho, Fabio Carvalho, Diogo Jota, and Luis Diaz. Now, with all these players, we have to roll the dice, which is I've got a little phone app here. Hopefully, you'll be able to see it on the camera. And for each one, there's like a little tick box. So if we get like a 1 or 1 to 3, then it goes to a certain amount. 5 or 4 or 5, that goes to a different amount. And then if you get the 6, then you get the most money that you're going to get offered for that player. So first off, Joe Gomez. We'll just go through all of the players, and then after we've got all the figures in, we'll see where we go from there. So for Joe Gomez,
is the list not higher? We've got Kelleher and Shimikaz.
Yes, it is Kelleher and Shimikaz. Yes, that's what happens when you don't scroll up. So so for Kelleher 3, so that's given us an offer of £11 million. Okay, next up, Shimikaz 1. We're really not doing well on this.
This is awful.
4 for Joe Gomez. So £16 million. 3 for Tyler Morton. That gives us an offer of £4 million. 5. That's for Fabinho. So an offer of £31 million. 4 for Fabio Carvalho. So an offer of £14 million. And then 3 for Diogo Jota, 36. We haven't even got one single 6 here.
This is poor.
Hey, there we go. Luis Diaz, £62 million offer for Luis Diaz. Now before we go any further, I'm going to roll the dice one more time, and it's come up with a number 1. So that's So after 20 minutes of debate, I'm going to clock the time. After 20 minutes, something will happen according to that number 1. And we'll have to react on the fly to whatever that is. So I guess let's go through all these players. There's a few that we can't sell. Adrian, who's on a year-to-year contract at this point. Stefan Bajcic. You can't, obviously, you don't want to be selling a player of that kind of talent. Ben Doak, bit too young for it, or bit too new to really be throwing him out. Cody Gakpo, again, a fairly new player. Don't want to be getting rid of him so far. Katie Gordon and Mohamed Salah, because as much as it would obviously bring a lot of money to the table, you don't want to be getting rid of your best players. So those are that's where we stand. So now we just have to figure out who we're selling.
Oof, right.
I suppose the big ones, Luis Diaz. If an offer of £62 million comes in for Diaz, I think the club would have to consider it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's the first one. You wouldn't want to get rid of him, but if a club comes in and just throws £62 million on the table, that starts a conversation.
So okay, let's pretend that has happened, because in the grand scheme of things, that's what you've got thrown at you. Would you get rid of Diaz?
I'd be reluctant to. It's a lot of money, but I don't know. I think it'd need to be a bit of a bigger sort of asking price. I think if you're leaning more towards 80 plus, I think you'd have to be definitely tempted. But in terms of what he offers, you're then looking at right. You need to bring in another sort of less-sided forward at that point, which will create problems down the line. I'm sure, especially once we account for the curveballs. I'd be reluctant personally to shake hands on that.
Yeah, you'd need to use the lot to replace him, really. Unless you were just going to use a player in the squad and then sign a lesser player for the bench, just weakening the team overall. Which, yeah, I mean it's a good deal, but I don't see us needing to go down unless we look at it later on and we're like, we need this player and we need to get the funds from Diaz. But yeah, it's not really a play. He's not a player you want to be looking to sell. I suppose there's another level to it. Like if he's got a burning desire to play for Real Madrid, and that's the team that has put forward the bid. But obviously that's not something that we know in this game. So yeah.
I tell you what, should we just go through this list and go through like the ones that we could definitely get rid of? Because I mean, there's like Nat Phillips. I mean, these are kind of players that probably aren't going to generate a lot of money, but we might as well just sort of go, that player hasn't really got a future. Let's just add them to the pile, try and generate as much.
I think we can agree with that. Yeah, Nat Phillips.
Yeah, I think that's it.
What do we feel? Yeah, players like Vandenberg.
It's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there is the temptation to just go, just get rid. Just get as much money on the table as possible before moving to the next step. But you've got to kind of stay within the spirit of the game. And if you were in a real life scenario, you wouldn't get rid of all of your kids just to generate some dough, unless you were really, really struggling. So, yeah, I'd say
I see your logic. Yeah, I suppose as well. If we're going to get rid of Reece Williams, then you probably makes sense.
Yeah, Reece Williams.
I suppose as well, the injury record Matip and Gomez famously have as well. Vandenberg could end up being that right-sided centre back that we need. You never know, and for the sake of $2 million, I think you'd rather just have that gamble. So,
Well, is there a conversation then?
He's on low wages as well. He's only on one unit, so it's not exactly doing much for us if we get rid of him.
Yeah.
Well, is there a conversation then to be had to bring in to sell Joel Matip, free the wage bill a bit?
Where's Joel? Oh yeah.
I would say we leave Matip for now, and then if we are struggling with the wage bill later on, that's when we go right. Okay. We'll cut our losses.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know basically the timeline in which this game is taking place is like the other week when we've just signed McAllister. Bellingham is still not at Real Madrid, as much as that pains me to say, Calvin Ramsey hasn't gone on loan yet. So that's the bubble that this spreadsheet was created in, because obviously football is constantly changing, especially with the transfer market. So yeah.
Well, that's a conversation we definitely need to have then, because we've got Connor Bradley and Calvin Ramsey. That's two right backs beyond Trent. So one of them, surely we need to be thinking about selling.
Yeah. I suppose the 8 there for Connor Bradley is not too bad, man. He's a promising player, but like you say, if the idea that Ramsey's sticking around, you do sort of think, don't you? I think of the defenders that are left there, he's probably the one you'd be tempted most to consider moving on, if any, to be honest, because obviously it would be unusual for a team to just offload like 10 players in a window. So, if we're going to get rid of another one, I would probably suggest Connor Bradley, even though in real life I would not suggest that.
Yeah.
And likewise, I think as well, we've got to think about left backs. We've got Owen Beck, Luke Chambers, and Andy Robertson. So that's a surplus of left backs.
Yeah, well, we've also don't forget Tsimikas. Yeah, is at the top. Although, it's not exactly the best offer that we've got on the table for Tsimikas.
No. I mean, arguably the best backup left back in the league for 9 mil. Yeah, absolutely. He's probably staying around.
But in which case, then it's bold of me to suggest. But in the spirit of the game, should we be thinking about offloading Chambers and Beck and freeing up 5 on the wage bill?
I think I would
go on then. Yeah,
I'd definitely get rid of Chambers, and I'm not going to argue against Beck. It's fine.
Right. Okay.
Chambers and Beck will sell.
Okay.
So let's see who's left.
So what were we saying about Connor Bradley? Because
I would swap Bradley for Beck if I was. I would get rid of Bradley but keep Beck just because the numbers and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Balance.
I could get behind that. I've already ticked the box, so I'm fully behind that. The keeper situation. Can we get rid of? Because I mean, there's Kelleher. We've got a fairly low offer for him in the grand scheme of things. Even though that's, I mean, did he come through the academy or was he brought in? Can't remember.
He was brought in, wasn't he? Because he was from, was it Ring? Did he come through? Was it?
Yeah, he was brought through at a very young age, and then he kind of worked his way through the last years at the academy before getting through.
So how much? I can't remember how much he was brought in for, but either way, it's a fairly hefty profit that we're making if we're getting 11 mil for him.
I suppose you've got to argue as well. I think both Pitaluga and Davies are quite highly rated. Pitaluga obviously came back off a Shrewsbury loan. Did pretty well there by all accounts.
Just to skip ahead, in the ins section, we've only got one goalkeeper, Ron Robert Zieler from Hanover. I can't say that I've seen an awful lot of Hanover, so I can't really. But he's available on a free.
He's 34 years. Yeah. He's 34 years of age and hasn't played any football. I don't know. I think how old Adrian now? Like what he must be on.
I think it's about the same. Isn't he? About 30? Is he 35, 36?
I worry. He's 36. I've just looked. I worry with Zieler. It might be a case where he's probably going to be second choice ahead of Adrian, but he's not by as considerable a distance as Kelleher. At which point, I wonder whether it's worthwhile considering advancing one of the younger lads and saving that money.
Yeah. I think whatever happens, Adrian is definitely third choice. He's regardless of what we do with Kelleher. I mean, in real life and he's definitely not going to get a bump up as some people are sort of worrying. Like there's definitely one of the youth prospects is going to get the bump over him.
I think the thing that's hampering us really with Kelleher is that we've got the lower offer for Kelleher because it's like you're looking at it going, is it really worth shipping out Kelleher to have Adrian or Zieler as second choice for 11 mil? No. But if it had been the higher ones, obviously in real life you look at it and you go, well, he's obviously above being on our bench. So there's that. In real life as well, Harvey Davies has just gone to Crewe on loan. So there's that's besides the people playing a game. Never mind.
I mean, we could. I mean, what I was going to say is that the wages and the price just aren't for those two aren't really worth getting rid of, unless we desperately need to pick up $2,000. If that makes sense, like later on in the grand scheme of things, we might as well just keep them in for now.
So the decision really is get rid of Kelleher, get in Zieler, and that is just 11 mil in the bank. Is that worth it?
Probably not. Not at this stage anyway. Again, maybe when we get to the buying stage, we might go. We could probably do with what is it, 13 mil in the bank, in which case you go right. Okay, bomb. Two youth keepers and Kelleher are out.
You bring in Zieler as well. You're sacrificing wage units. I think that's 4, which is. Yeah, I think it's looking a bit tight at the moment.
I have a gut feeling, though, that the salary units are going to be less of an issue than the transfer budget is. But that's just a gut feeling anyway.
Okay, so we'll be keeping Kelleher and Shimikaz for now. Are we still working on the sort of current options list? Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, none of those offers are really jumping out to me, apart from Gomez.
Would you not consider Morton? I know it's not much in the wage units, but in terms of just a little bit of added extra padding, let's be honest. You're looking at Bajcetic and Fabinho. I just can't see where he's going to get minutes.
Good shout, that.
I'm not against it.
I would say put him on like the side pile of like, if we need to, we'll sell. But as of right now, not. That 4 million isn't really swaying me.
Fair enough. Okay, well, here's something I think is a somewhat easy decision potentially. Fabio Carvalho. Any shouts there to sell him?
I'm trying to ignore the real life situation. Because if you look at him on paper, you're just going, no, you're keeping him because he's an absolute future gem.
But then you hear the rumours, and it's like, well, don't think he's going to be a future gem at Liverpool.
So if we're playing the game, you're looking at that, thinking that's 14 in the bank, nice bit of extra wage units in to play around with. I think wage units will come in quite important, to be honest. I think we're only on 19 wage units.
Yeah.
So assuming the average player is going to cost 8 wage units. I feel like we're going to need to free up some space there.
Yeah.
It's a real conundrum.
In line of considering that, would you consider Jota?
I wouldn't consider Jota,
No.
I wouldn't, especially I think. Yeah, no, I get what you from the point of view of if you're looking at centre forward, you're thinking Nunez and Gakpo, but then I think Jota always adds that extra something. You could technically put them out right as well, and Salah goes AFCON. I think this is very hard to distinguish between the game and reality.
The Salah AFCON shout is a good one because I mean, again, we have to divide real life with this game, but that AFCON run that we've got without Salah is pretty difficult. There's some pretty difficult fixtures thrown in there, so. Having Jota to sort of come, I mean, he's a very streaky player, but when he's on a run, he is on a run, and
he's got any of his body parts. He's a freak.
Yeah. I don't really want to get rid of him, to be honest, but
I wouldn't be getting rid of any of the forwards, to be honest with you. I think we've only Bobby gone. We've only got 5. I know you can make arguments for Kyder Gordon if he has a good sort of up-and-coming season. Harvey Elliott technically can play that right-wing role. But, yeah, I'd be very... I don't know, leaves you get rid of Diaz or Jota and leaves you with 4 senior forwards, which for me is... I'm uncomfortable with that prospect.
Yeah, I suppose you can't replace Jota with 36 mil. That's the problem, really, isn't it? You couldn't go in the market, you probably couldn't go in the market and get a player that would do what he does for Liverpool. I think out of those players there, I think Carvalho is probably the most tempting to move on. And then depending on what happens later on, Gomez, and if we get pressured, Morton. But I'm a bit sceptical about moving on centre mids at the minute because that's definitely a weak point for Liverpool.
I wonder if wage will come into play more, actually. I know Rick reckons it'll be transfers, because in that case, then, you'd be looking at Joel Matip. I know only 4 for transfer, the age for the wage compared to Gomez's 6. And of the 2, again, I know the injury issues, but I think Gomez is your younger player, plays centre-back, plays right-back. Matip's on the way out. Tough one. I think they'll have to come into play later, like you're saying, Steve. But we've got some tough decisions to make. Shall we go?
Can we move on to a midfield and?
Yeah, I think we need to. Yeah, go on then.
Right. Okay.
Let's
look at things.
Oh, look at that for Curtis Jones.
Curtis Jones is 50 mil.
Jesus Christ.
I love Curtis Jones, but bloody hell.
That is fucking...
I'm worried now that I've typed in the wrong... No. 45, 48
tax
is
there, isn't it? Christ.
48 is the price that the tour have given him. So, yeah, I stand by that. The English tax, yeah.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
And he's improved in the last couple of last
he's
couple of weeks.
He's a good player.
He's been on fire. So,
I'm going to go out there and sit on a limb and just say we're not selling Jones or Elliott. And the real discussion here is about Thiago.
Yeah, because that is 10 mil, and he's not.
Look at the wage units.
Yeah, 10 units. Sorry, 8 mil. We're not going to get an awful lot for him, but getting his wages off the book would be. Again, he's one of these players that I would put on the maybe pile, like the break glass in case of emergency, because he's the kind of player that brings so much to the team, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does a lot behind the scenes that we don't see either, like in the changing rooms. He seems to be one of these kind of players that you'd do anything to have at your club. But if he's not fit, then that's 10 wage units just sat there doing nothing effectively. Yeah.
Yeah,
Henderson's an interesting one.
I wrote a season review recently, actually, and I discussed about which of Liverpool's main players would be first out the door if we needed to generate funds. And after quite a bit of consideration, I decided it was Thiago. If anybody had to, although that wouldn't be a preferable decision, but if we had to, it would be him. And looking at what I've seen so far, as I say, I'm a bit skeptical about getting rid of midfielders, but depending on who maybe we'll bring in, I think Thiago would be the first domino to fall for me in terms of, getting rid of players, especially after seeing that, his wage units there being the highest in that little midfield bracket, and, combined Jones and Elliott's wages. So, yeah, I think Thiago would be the first for me to go if we started looking at midfielders for the chopping block. But, Farrell, you were talking about Henderson, were you?
Yeah, it's a difficult one with Henderson, isn't it? Because I think, you're looking at the two players that sort of, you didn't quite expect to have as big a drop-off, and it was Henderson and Fabinho. But sort of Fabinho sort of got his act together with the Trent inverted role sort of coming into play. But Jordan Henderson looks very much the kind of player who's just going to slip seamlessly into that sort of James Milner role. Now, the question is because, we keep Fabinho on the basis of you keep playing that Trent role. He still very much has, I think Klopp's already said he's going to be an integral part of the side going into next season regardless. Henderson, you can't really be as confident and say the same way, at least as far as pitch performance is concerned. But how much Liverpool value that off the pitch involvement, the motivation, the setting the standards, the leadership. Is he on the maybe pile?
I mean, he's probably next after
Thiago,
isn't he? I mean, Fabinho, even though he had that 31 mil for Fabinho. No, I mean, Fabinho, he did have a bit of a drop off, but there is that feeling that that player is still in there, whereas Henderson, with the greatest of respect, is over the hill. We're not going to get Henderson's best again. That's now behind him. Obviously, wonderful leader, but on the pitch, his influence is waning. So, yeah, I think he would be next after Thiago for me in that little bracket anyway.
I would say that I agree what you've said. My only concern is if he can't get on the pitch, then all he becomes is a spokesman for the club. He's club captain, but if he's not on the pitch, then he's not exactly doing what we need from him. And yeah, it's that 31 million for Fabinho. I also think that Fabinho, you said that there is that chance that it's just a dip, but it just seems to me as though because it helps that we've got Trent now coming into the midfield positioning, but it always felt to me that the defense suffered because Fabinho wasn't on his in his prime. We haven't seen the best of Van Dijk. It's always been a bit of that partnership with Van Dijk at the back has always been a bit in flux this last season, and it hasn't helped that the wall in front of them hasn't been as structurally integral as it has been in previous seasons. And for 31 million,
yeah,
10 wage units off the books.
It's tempting, but for me, it becomes a discussion about space control. Because don't get me wrong, I was first in queue to slam Fabinho for much of his performances last season. But again, you saw sort of Trent coming up with his fresh legs into that midfield role, women possession, squeezing that space. Fabinho had less ground to cover, massively changed his performances. You add that on top to Liverpool bringing in quality sort of loads of energy midfielders, like your Alexis McAllisters of the world. How much does that benefit Fabinho's game? Because you'd be inclined to blame a lot of it on, so Henderson's legs go, you don't have your Wijnaldum figure in there, you don't have your legs in midfield, which then means Fabinho's got a lot more ground to cover. Yes, I do think form comes to that partially, and of course the prior campaign, but I would be more inclined, to sell Thiago or Henderson first before Fabinho.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you mentioned there is the reduction of space that he has to travel, because of course the space is compacted because Trent's there as well, but Trent can't play every single game. He's going to need a break at some point.
But again, that's why you bring in midfielders.
Well, yeah, but it's a case of we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it, because we've got 113 million in the bank. Maybe we need to get some sort of defensive cover as well. That's not an awful lot to play around with, I don't think, to get 3 players of quality. And if Trent can't play, then you've got to make sure that his understudy is capable of playing the same style, because otherwise you're stuck with Fabinho in no man's land, effectively trying to cover all this space, and he's shown that he's getting to the point now where he might not be able to maintain that granted it'd be for long periods of time, and Trent would only be out for, with any luck, cross fingers, only a match or two, and wouldn't have a sustained injury. But if he did have a sustained injury, heaven forbid, what happens with that defensive midfield position?
But then is that entirely dependent on Trent's availability? Because would you not say, you Liverpool bring in, a couple more, even just one more midfielder with legs and dynamism in him? Does that not shrink the space anyway? Because I think Fabinho's struggles last term aren't entirely down to Trent coming in and shoring it up. It was we didn't have that level of energy around Fabinho to cover the space, which means he gets overwhelmed a lot.
Well, in that case, shall we move on to shall we look at who's available for the ins before we progress? Because I feel like it's getting to that point where it's like, well, if we get this kind of player in, then, but before we do that, there's been some breaking news. Man City have been found guilty of all charges against them. Players are now asking to leave. Haaland is now available for 100 million.
Well, that
is now a possibility.
That is a tasty conundrum.
So what's that? Is that Curtis Jones, Fabinho, and Carvalho out and Haaland in? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that's the thing is, we would be left with 13 million, and he would also come in as our joint top paid player. I think that's a no. Some little feeling in the back of my head saying no to that.
Yeah,
reason to celebrate still. The charges. We've been found guilty of the charges. Lovely stuff. That's great news for us.
Nice 115 financial charges. I want to remind our viewers, if one of those bad boys doesn't stick, I will be shocked. I will buy a hat and I will eat it live on air if one of those charges do not. Mark my words.
Okay, so that little dice roll didn't really do anything really in the grand scheme of things. I don't think we're buying him. So, right, where do we start? I think so. We've already brought in Alexis McAllister from Brighton. And that's a done deal. I think we should focus on the midfield. I think that's the main place we need to focus on.
Alex Scott from Bristol City. All right. Just my eyes were just drawn straight there. I don't know why.
Valverde for 91 million.
It's a lot.
It is a lot of money.
It's a lot.
Milinkovic-Savic for 28. That's quite good. That's quite good.
Yeah, but he's also. I feel like he's like a meme player, like Marco Reus was for us a while back, where it's just sort of like we just keep going back to the same name over and over and over again. Like I feel like he's been linked with us so many times over the past decade. Like I remember signing him on Football Manager, like 2011, back when he was like a proper sort of like upcoming. And here we are now.
I mean, the question is as well: does he fit the age profile? He's 20. He's 6'3", so which is something that will definitely appeal to our recruit. Well, will appeal to us as the transfer committee. But he's 28 years of age. 28 years of age. I've just got up his FB Ref stats here. He's phenomenal in the air. He's in the 98th percentile for aerials for midfielders amongst his peers over the last calendar year. Ranked very highly for touches in the opposing penalty box, 90th percentile, 77th percentile for successful take-ons. His pass completion is absolutely diabolical, though. 75.1% of passes completed, which puts him into the 13th percentile amongst his midfield peers. It's a small pool of passes attempted, though, about 58.18 per 90. Any thoughts, gents?
I don't know. Some stats can be a bit misleading. I mean, Milinkovic-Savic is hoofing the ball up to Immobile in these days. It's not. It might not end too well for him in that respect. He might be attempting more risky passes than his teammates, perhaps. But I mean, yeah, he's definitely not got the star power that he used to. I mean, I was just looking at the players there, and I mean, I'm drawn to Manu Kone, and I know that seems like a bit of an easy shout, but based on this game that we're playing here, Manu Kone seems to be the one that I'm drawn to the most. Like Yuri Tielemans would have been one of them, but 12 wage credits, him coming in on that doesn't sit quite right, I don't think. So yeah, I mean that, and Yunus Musa as well from Valencia. I think he could be quite a good shout. I've always been impressed by him. And I like his wage credits and also price. So I'd like to throw Manu Kone and Yunus Musa into the zeitgeist.
I'd just like to capitalise on Steve's admiration of Manu Kone, Gladbach superstar. 6'1", so not quite the 6'3" levels of Milinkovic-Savic or even 6'4" of Kefren Turan, but statistically, he's wonderful. 75th percentile for tackles, 96th percentile for successful take-ons, 78th percentile for pass completion. That's based on a very small pool of passes attempted, 47.52 per 90, of which he has an 86.2% success rate. So that would need to improve, but I assume he'd be expected to play a lot more passes at Liverpool, and 77th percentile for progressive carries. Bit of a raw talent, but I think there's a lot there to unearth for the 8 salary, 34 spend. Fits the bill really, I think, for potential Liverpool midfielder in terms of the value that you're getting for him. Tielemans is an interesting shout, although he's only 5'9", and I think that's going to be a problem, especially if we've already brought McAllister, who's about roughly 5'9" as well. I think, as you were saying the other day, kind of need to look for midfielders that are probably 6 foot and over.
Yeah, I mean we've got a fairly short squad in the grand scheme of things, and I feel like that's been an issue that we've been talking about for ages and ages. It's just, you know, I mean, I haven't got the stats in front of me, but it just from the eyeball test, it feels like we're losing more and more of those like aerial challenges as seasons go by. Because it used to be that like long ago, it felt like every single time we got a corner, we were going to get a goal out of it, and now it just feels like, well, we got a corner, it's probably just going to go back to their side, and we'll just play on from the center of the pitch again, I guess. Whenever it gets to that point, I'm all on board for Kone. I'm happy to tick that box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How big is Coop Miners? Is Coop Miners a physical presence?
Coop Miners is small, I think. Let me just get if this will ever load. No. Bear with me, gents. I will get the stats one way or another. Team Coop Miners. Give me the height in feet, s'il vous plaît. No, that's there we go. Right, okay. Oh, actually, no, he's 6 foot. He's exactly 6 foot Team Coop Miners. So not bad. Although I'd be tempted.
A bit of leadership about him as well, isn't there? A little bit of leadership about him too.
If we want to throw a random one in, I think Lucas Suic, potentially.
Oof.
Can I tempt anyone there?
A Leipzig midfielder.
A Leipzig midfielder. Oh. Yeah, no, it's a potentially interesting one, I think. So he's 6.5 feet. His aerials percentage isn't bad. It puts him at 52nd percentile for aerials 1 amongst his midfield peers. Registers high for interceptions and blocks. Average for tackles. Pass completion is a bit average. He makes plenty of passes attempted. Makes a lot of progressive passes, but that's something that needs to be worked on. He doesn't seem a particularly competent ball carrier. But again, you think 20 years of age. Could we work on that? Potentially. Don't know what our thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, he sounds all right. I'm still just drawn to the two that I said before. Kone, which we all like the sound of Kone, and Musa as well. I think he would be another shout there. But no, I could definitely see benefits from all the players that we've mentioned here. It's a shame that Jacob Ramsey's 66 mil, because he probably would have been a good shout too as well. But I mean, you're probably not going to splash out that much. But I mean, we've seen similar. Curtis Jones has a similar sort of inflation in our squad, so I suppose there's that. But yeah, Manu Kone just seems to be a shout there. But Zukic also looks like he could be some player. I don't know a great deal about him, but Leipzig do seem to churn out some good little gems here and there, even if their injury records are sometimes left to be desired.
Out of curiosity, was anyone tempted by Conor Gallagher?
I was just looking at him, and I was just thinking he's a similar sort of profile to to Jones in terms of age and value. What's
because the only thing that puts me off is his height. So he's 5'11". But statistically, and this is quite interesting, at least this is according to FBref's statistical profile, so bear that in mind with a pinch of salt. But they obviously compare him to another sort of 10 midfielders, and they look at who he's most statistically similar to. Do we want to guess the name at the top of that list of who Conor Gallagher is most statistically similar to?
Statistically similar? I don't know, the way that he plays... a player currently active in the league, or historically, Milner from 5 years ago. Is that?
So it's across all of Europe's top 5 leagues. So bear that in mind.
Oh,
it's not
Jesus.
In England. So the player that he's most statistically similar to does not play in England, though hint, many wish he did.
Was it Bellingham?
Yes, it is indeed Jude Bellingham. Believe it or not, Jude Bellingham is the most statistically similar player to Conor Gallagher, according to FBref's statistical profile, followed closely by Joel Linton of Newcastle. Other notable similarities are Leon Goretzka, who comes in 4th, and Konrad Laimer in 8th, both Bayern Munich players, or soon to be Bayern Munich players for Konrad Laimer. Statistic. I mean, again, I don't want to get too bogged down in statistics, but I think it's hard to ignore. It comes up very well for touches in the opposing penalty box, progressive passes received, does reasonably well for carries and successful take-ons, 81st percentile, 79th percentile, respectively. Just seems to be looking at that. Seems to be a player that seems to be more involved in the sort of final phase of play. Not that we don't want our midfielders to be involved in the final phase of play, but I feel like we need more, perhaps physically dominant.
He's not doing so well with the old assists, though.
No.
Looking at his stats,
No, his assists aren't fantastic. He does very well for non-penalty XG, though. So he is a goal threat. But it depends really what you're looking from the midfielder, because I think as an absolute minimum, we need physicality, which is where he might fall short at 5'11". And then anything else beyond that is an added bonus. So it depends what you're looking for beyond that. What trumps it for you both? What about you, Steve? If you're looking for like a physically sort of competent midfielder, what's going to be the final sort of cherry on top of the cake for you? You're going to be looking for goals or assists? Because it seems to be the constant problem, isn't it? We've always complained about our midfield. Even when we had Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Fabinho at their absolute peak of their powers, it was always an issue of Liverpool's midfielders and chip in with goals. But has it turned for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the ball carrying thing, but I'm sort of yet to see how Alexis McAllister works in a Liverpool team. I'm thinking that might be a role that he takes up at Liverpool. So I think the main thing for me would be just having some hard hitters in midfield because we've been run over a few too many times in midfield. We don't seem to have that same dynamic. Don't have that same sort of fire in midfield, for lack of a better word. Manu Kone is a great shout there. I think, Sander Berge would be a bit of a battering ram, but I'm not too sure whether we'd want Sander Berge starting.
Yeah, he's not got exactly the most sort of battering ram is probably the best description. He's not exactly got fitness about him.
Statistically, he's a competent ball carrier. 6'2" as well, previously admired by Jurgen Klopp. Perhaps one you'd think wouldn't feature high up on the short list. But he's not a bad option. It just depends. It depends what kind of... The difficulty will be going back and looking at the players we could sell to potentially make room. I think we can all safely agree right now we all want Manu Kone.
Yeah.
And then we probably want another midfielder beyond that. So the question is, who are we looking at, and are we looking to sell anyone to accommodate?
Yeah, I think that is it. The free transfers just don't seem overly appealing, do they?
No.
The ones that are there. It's Elemans is probably the closest. Obviously, in real life, he's going to be signing for Aston Villa, but they don't appeal. Maybe this is how it is actually in the real world. Because when you're playing FIFA, you do just get free transfers like it's going out of fashion. But you're looking at the wage there, and you're like, nah, Kante is not coming in on 12 wage credits, whatever that means. I think, I don't know about you guys, I think at this point we could probably move on to another position and then maybe reconsider perhaps Fabinho and maybe Carvalho's potential outs as we look at the forward line to see if we could improve midfield or forward a little bit more.
So in that case, I mean, when you say we want to move on to different positions, I mean, we look at defence. Is that what you're saying?
I think let's have a look at the back line, because I think this is going to be a really tricky one, because I know obviously midfield is going to take much of the attention, but I don't think many of us are really considering just how important it is we get the back line right, given that you're looking at sort of the inconsistencies of Gomez and Matip. Konate played less than half of our available league games last term, which, if we're looking at Konate as the man who's effectively going to allow Trent to play the inverted role, you're either banking on him being fit for the whole entire season, 90% of the games, or you're bringing in another competent right-sided centre-half.
Right. So my concern is looking at the budget that we have and bearing in mind who will be swapping out and how much they'll be bringing to the table. Some of these defenders are very expensive. and you've got maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 there that are in this sort of like quite cheap and wouldn't take it too much out of the midfield budget, because that's something that we definitely need to sort out. And any defender is going to probably be an understudy / sidekick for Konate. So unless we get someone in, I mean, what was the decision on? I've already forgot what our decision was with the whole right back situation. Yeah.
So I think we agreed that we'd sell. Was it Connor Bradley?
Connor Bradley.
Yeah, Connor Bradley.
Yeah. And then that means we've then got Trent and Calvin Ramsey.
See, I don't think that. I don't think that Calvin Ramsey is going to be that Trent. Like we'd have to play in a different style if he was on the pitch. We wouldn't be doing this hybrid midfield game that we're doing with Trent.
We'd revert to what we always did, though, wouldn't we? What we've done before Trent, which is having three competent midfielders who can cover the space.
Yes, but also remember that we were practically going to have a brand new midfield who haven't played in that style before. So that's two different types of styles of play that they're having to learn.
Well, I mean, it depends who you go for, really, isn't it? Because I think Alexis McAllister, will be a seamless fit. I think he's the one player we can all agree on right now instantly improves your midfield three, and I think pretty much instantaneously seamlessly fit to Liverpool's style of play. Brighton's style of play isn't too dissimilar to how Liverpool play, certainly under De Zerbi. So I wouldn't be really. I'm genuinely fully confident McAllister will be pretty much an instantaneous hit. It's just a question of who you go for beyond that. Really, I'm not too familiar with Gladbach's or Nice's style of play for Manu Kone or Kethren Thuram. So I don't know how quickly they'd adapt.
Nice are quite, for whatever it's worth, Nice are quite narrow in terms of how they play. They don't tend to go out wide too often. I'm not an expert on Nice, but that was a bit of a conversation I had with a French journalist a few weeks ago. We were talking about how Leeds and Nice are quite similar in that they rely on funneling through the middle of the pitch. So whatever that tells you about that, there you go.
Oh, well, okay. So I think it's safe to assume then some time for adaptation would be needed for Thuram. Although, by comparison, Thuram certainly seems a bit further along in his development than Manu Kone. That seems to be the impression I'm getting, certainly from people I've had conversations with. It would be Thuram and then Kone in the pecking order. I'm just looking down that list anyway, and I don't think... Are there any competent... Those are all centre-halves, aren't they?
Yeah.
Pavard's a bit of both, isn't he?
Yeah.
Pavard's a bit of both, to be fair. Yeah. But then would you... Yeah. Can I don't think any of us are going to go for him because of the cost, but can I just make a quick case for Chelsea's Levi Colwill?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Guardiola.
He's a phenomenon. He's contracted with Chelsea until 2025. Had a solid loan spell with Brighton last term. I will state, and this is part of the reason why I think we won't go for him, in addition to the cost, is that he seems to be more of a long-term Virgil van Dijk replacement. Obviously, Chelsea are very aware of how talented he is, and they're reluctant to sell. Understandably, that is their right. According to stats collected on him, and this is interesting that they say that Virgil van Dijk is the third most statistically similar player to Chelsea's Levi Colwill, behind Andreas Christensen and Facundo Medina. Aerials 1, this is the interesting barometer, I think, when you're looking at sort of centre-halves and sort of comparing them with Van Dijk, or at least part of it. So he registered in the 95th percentile for Aerials 1. Van Dijk is 92nd. Of course, this is over the last 365 days, so we've got to account for Van Dijk's drop in form. He carries the ball forward a lot more than Virgil. So he's in the 88th percentile for progressive carries. Virgil's is 34th. progressive passes, 92nd percentile. Virgil is 76th. Pass completion percentage. He's got a pass completion percentage of 88.2% per 90, which means he's in the 78th percentile compared to Virgil's 89.9th percentile. But I think he's taken... is he taking more passes? Is that from a lower pool? I have to check that later. Shot creating actions, 93rd percentile compared to Virgil's 58th percentile. You can see the similarities there, lads. And certainly why Chelsea are so keen to hold on to him. But, I don't think this is one we go for this summer, but I'm thinking at some point beyond that, if an opportunity arises, especially given there's already been murmurs, isn't there? I don't think anyone's desperate to be replacing Virgil anytime soon or even thinking about a replacement, but I think that's going to be a very serious consideration next summer at the latest, I reckon.
There definitely needs to be a Virgil understudy. I think we can hold off a year or two on that, though. And I have a gut feeling that Chelsea are just going to... I mean, from the murmurings that we've heard, they're not going to really slow down on their desire to bring in new players. They'll definitely need to get rid of players to match FFP regs. But I just... if you're a youth player that's gone out on loan and you're coming back to Chelsea and you're seeing that in front of you and you're going, I don't even know, I can't even see where I fit in right now, let alone in a couple of years' time. It's such a minefield of a club that, maybe this is like, the Liverpool bias in me, but if it were me in that kind of position, I'd be like, I'll just see out my contract and try, and if they won't let me go, I'll see out my contract on loan somewhere, if they'll let me, and I'll try somewhere where I know that I'm definitely going to get game time and I'll be respected. And if he is as similar to Van Dijk as you are claiming, then we would probably be right up there saying, look, you've got you can learn from one of the best in the biz and you'll be his replacement in a year's time, 2 years time, but your game time will increase over time, and that's your route into full-time, a locked-in position.
I think that's the offer Liverpool have got to make. If his contract expires in 2025, you wait a year, he doesn't extend however long, and you think that's certainly a possibility. You look at Chelsea have brought in Benoit at Badiashile. I might have butchered that pronunciation. I do apologise. He's got to be looking at that situation, thinking, I'm probably not going to break into that back line unless I get a shot with Pochettino. If I don't get a shot with Pochettino, Liverpool over there will definitely, as Rick, you've rightly mentioned, be looking for a Van Dijk understudy, and there's a real possibility then of more regular playing minutes shortly after. I think that's definitely one Liverpool have to keep an eye on. But anyway, we're back to we're getting stuck with the real world. I think it's very hard to ignore it. The one that caught the eye for me was Gonzalo Inacio. 8 salary, 45 spend. Not as superior of aerials, but I think looks more of the right-sided centre defender. More of like a Joel Matip replacement almost, especially when you look at his ball carrying stats. So he's in the 97th percentile for progressive carries, 96th for successful take-ons, 99% for progressive passes. His pass completion rate is 89.6% from a higher volume of passes attempted per 90, 88.63. So he ranks in the 92nd percentile for pass completion ahead of Virgil van Dijk. Does really well for shot creating actions too. Might be a decent option then for your right-sided centre half, if we're prepared to spend that much.
Yeah, it's a difficult one really, because I mean, looking at all these players, I'm not really convinced. Looking at the transfer budget as well, and the fact that midfield is probably where our priority should be, even though we've already added to it, I'm not convinced any of these players that we can get are going to do anything massive for Liverpool. Gomez and Matip have obviously got their injury woes, but I don't think the money that we could generate from shifting either of them on, I don't think is enough to justify jumping in on one of these players. Gvardiol is obviously the outstanding player in this list here, and he would obviously be a choice, but we actually at the moment can't budget that. I think for me anyway, in terms of jumping on a new defender, I'd have to have another look to see what we got offered for Gomez, because I think there's definitely a case for some of these players.
Right. Okay. So 16 million for Joe Gomez.
Yeah, it's just, if you're going to spend like 45 million on a new centre half, is it going to be that much of an increase on Joe Gomez? But then again, there's the injury record of Joe Gomez.
I would also throw in something that not a lot of people are considering is, well, I mean, a few people are considering, but it doesn't seem like the transfer committee are considering, is homegrown status. And if you're getting rid of Gomez, then you really need to. At that point, we are not up a creek without a paddle, but we're definitely in that sort of like, we need to be signing English players, and then that's where you get your English tax comes into the equation, and it's like, well, you got a budget for that, and so it's almost as if, like, if you get rid of Gomez, then you kind of also have to get rid of Fabinho almost, or someone like that, in order to free up the wages, or not the wages, or the transfer budget, in order to bring in that English player.
Yeah. The problem is, if you're looking at English players, you're looking at what? Wait, no, sorry, no, I was going to say is Bella Kotchap English?
Good question. I don't think he is.
I don't think he is. But it was one of those I was looking at and thinking, is he? No, beg your pardon. He's a German professional. So you're looking at Levi Colwill. Looking down that list, Levi Colwill basically is your sole homegrown option. So a lot of money.
Well, you could get rid of Matip and then spend even more of the budget to bring in a non-homegrown player. I like the sound of Mickey van der Van. I think that's Mickey van der Van. That's a superb name.
Wouldn't be a bad option, Steve. Wouldn't be a bad option. Does very well for progressive carries and successful take-ons, 90th percentile, 93rd percentile, respectively. He's terrible with aerials, but again, you put him alongside Virgil, you don't really need to worry about that. Okay for pass completion, would need work, but you're buying a young player there, so you already understand that you're going to need to work with him and coach him and improve him, but lots of potential there, and he's one of the cheaper options on the list.
I'll throw in Timber into the mix. Mr. Statman, can you give me the lowdown on Timber?
I give you the lowdown on Timber. Timber is actually the one I wasn't expecting everyone to go for, but I can get the stats for you extremely quickly.
Because it's quite easy to type in.
This is annoying. Here we go. Well, Timber looks decent. There's a lot of green there. There's a lot of green. Ranks very highly for shot creating actions. Superb pass completion rate, 99th percentile for central defenders. 99th percentile for progressive passes, 99th percentile for progressive carries, 94 for successful take-ons. Not great with the aerials, but I suppose again you're not thinking of him as your sort of left-sided central defender. A lot to like there, really, about Jurrien Timber, and I think he is right-footed. So I think we're meant to be looking for left-footed centre backs, but we'll play the game. Jurrien Timber is obviously a very, very good young defender. Plenty to like there, but again, 5'10". So you're buying him as effectively as your Matip replacement. You're not expecting him to dominate in set pieces. But if you look at the stats there, I think you can. He's clearly very comfortable handling the ball and moving it forward, which is exactly what you'd want from a potential Matip point too. What do we reckon, gents? Because I'm just looking back at the list there. And obviously, he's a little bit more expensive than Mickey van der Ven. 9 million more from the budget. Takes a really big. You're looking at over half the budget gone on Jurrien Timber before you obviously take into consideration in potential sales.
He is one of the ones that I would be looking at. But I mean, I suppose there's a very small case. I'll say it quietly, but there's a small case that Seb van den Berg could actually become a bit of a monster. You know, he's not really had a full run at Liverpool. He's still very young. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to come in and be Guardiola for Liverpool, but you know, there is that case that he could be the one on the bench, you know, to give the players the rest. And then next year, Liverpool would go out and pick up a player like Timber or Colwill or somebody like that. But I think for me, the list of players in front of me and the prices of them all, I'm not wholly convinced by any of them.
Yeah.
You know, not against the players, but it's obviously the prices attached to them and the budget Liverpool have got in this game. It's you know, I think we have to be careful, and I'm not convinced really by any of them with all those things I take into consideration.
I would say, based on the fact that he's one of the better, cheaper options, that we. I mean, yeah, I'd say if we're going to get someone, Mickey Van der Ven.
Can we agree on Van der Ven as a potential purchase? So it won't be a
Van der Ven.
I mean, it kind of feels like cheating because we've literally gone right. Okay, so we're getting Kone and Van der Ven, which are the two players that we've been kind of linked with. It feels like we're just sort of going by. Well, if Twitter says it's okay, then it's okay. But
maybe we're just onto something. Maybe we just know what we're talking about.
I mean, statistically, he's a good ball carrier. So if you're looking for a Matip replacement, you know, not as a Virgil understudy, I think that fits the bill.
And he's got a great name, and he's definitely getting called Mick if he comes to Liverpool. So you know, there's bonuses everywhere.
Mick, I wish to make a public apology because we only have 5 mil in the wage budget. I thought it was going to be transfers, not the transfer budget, not the salary that was going to be. I apologise, Farrell.
I warned you all. I warned you all. It'll be the wage budget. It's always the wages. It's always the wages.
Right. So I guess we're back at midfielders.
Yes. Now I'm looking at the list here, gents, and the only midfielders I see below 5 are Alex Scott. Yeah, just Alex Scott, basically. So,
right. Well, we've got Alex Scott then. Let's go.
Alex Scott. Right. I'm thinking we need to free up some wage budget.
Might be. Can we have a look at the forwards before we move on? Actually, I'd like to see who's down there. Yeah, we did look at this before briefly. Yeah. Oh, Sadio.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of players there that would improve the team. And Zaha, lovely.
A lot of players that would enjoy it. And Zaha.
Oh, Haaland's snuck in at the bottom there. Yeah, he'll stay there.
I know. Tantalising there. Tantalising.
Nice and black and yellow.
Maybe he goes back to Dortmund then. It's a sign. Yeah. Right, okay. I've had a little look at that. Yeah.
Kavicha, I don't mind at all, but a bit out of reach, I think.
Yeah. One of the most sought after players in the world.
Yeah, I know. Just that lad. Right, so what are we saying? Is we've got 45 million left in the transfer budget and 5 salary units left. Should we be looking at players we can offload?
I would say that we just sort of pick the player that we want and then worry about freeing up the wage budget.
Okay. Do we have any curveballs, by the way?
The curveball was Haaland.
Oh, but I don't know if there were any more sort of upcoming.
No. I mean, if you really want another one, we can throw another one into the mix.
I mean, should we? I might regret saying that it's going to be like Luis Diaz's leg falls off or something.
No, I mean, we could, because that curveball just flew over the stand like a Dejan Lovren attempt on goal from 50 yards, didn't it? I mean, we didn't even see it.
We've just rolled 6.
Uh-oh.
So Bayern Munich have just offered Sadio Mane to us for 20 million.
Interesting.
Discount of 8 million. Again, these are, like you said, these are Dejan Lovren over the Rosie.
It's
I
just
don't
not
think.
what we need at the minute.
No,
isn't it?
he's not.
Forwards,
It's really
just,
not.
No, it's a step back. It's a step. I mean, he's a phenomenal footballer legend, but obviously that's just a step back. Because the only thing I could consider really would be you could raise a bit of money by getting rid of Diaz to bring in Mane, but that is literally a step backwards.
Do you want a different curveball? Shall we just go for another curve? We'll keep going for
Keep
curveballs
going till it makes
something
sense.
actually.
Oh no!
You won't get this on
Levi
tour.
Colwill for half price. Go on.
Right. Okay. Virgil van Dijk has hit
Oh, for God's
international
sake!
appearance contract threshold. His salary has now gone to 14. We now have one salary unit left.
Well, that definitely makes it
dear.
interesting.
I'm so sorry, lads.
Is
We
that
can now.
that Joel Matip leaving the club? Is it maybe?
we can now no longer afford Alex Scott. It's a very bleak situation, gentlemen.
Maybe we can get our own
okay.
cast to play in midfield for us.
I think
I think it's got. Look, listen. If we're bringing in a right-sided central defender, I think Matip has to go. Surely.
I think he's the one.
Should we all agree? Should we sell him?
Yeah,
It's a sad day. It's a sad day, but
Has to
Joel's
be done.
fan.
Sorry, Joel. Thanks for the
okay.
memories.
Yeah. Thanks for all the fish.
that assist in the Champions League final, I will never forget it. What a player!
What a guy!
What
What a guy!
Okay, so we've got our list of sort of. There's a core list of players there: Kelleher, Shimikaz, Gomez, Morton, Fabinho, Carvalho, Jota, and Diaz. We have a transfer budget of 49 million, and we've got 9 units of salary. What are we saying? Because in terms of the players that we can afford with that in midfield, you're looking realistically at the likes of Milan Kolic, Savic, Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. That is frustrating, gentlemen. That is frustrating. We're actually 1 million away from Catherine Turan. 1 million. My laptop is about to die. I'm just going to plug that back in.
Hang on. So, I mean, we could just get rid of Owen Beck.
That does make sense. I mean, I would sponsor that. I would sponsor that decision. Can we all agree to sell
Owen Beck? Yeah, all right. It's been done.
No.
Right.
Sorry, Owen, if you're watching.
There you go. Catherine Turan, everyone. Can we go? What are we saying?
I think everybody would understand that decision. Yeah. Yeah. So at the minute, have we brought in the 3 players that have been most heavily linked to the club at the minute? Is that what we're doing?
So basically,
We've spent over an hour on this, and all we've done
timer
is
is
go
a
by
minute.
Twitter rumors.
Oh my God, an hour and 12 minutes, and we've basically just gone for the 3 most linked players at Liverpool Football Club in the 3 positions we need.
I mean,
this has been
not going to lie though, they're
exceptional.
linked for a reason. So I mean, it's just how have we done this?
Anyone who's stuck with us to this point is going to be thoroughly disappointed.
We've got Mickey van der Ven in there as well. You know, it's.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, another one that has been linked.
All that, yeah. All that, and with the curveball of Van Dijk's up salary. So I think that's
yeah.
And Sadio Mane has been knocked back from Liverpool. Very good.
I mean,
right.
I mean, hang on a moment though. Right.
I suppose we could do something drastic. Keep it
We
interesting.
could do something drastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to do something drastic?
we could do
sell
something.
them.
I mean, it's just an option.
What's
it's
selling
not
that?
something-
What we're saying?
Get rid of Van Dijk.
That is a bold move, sir.
Yeah, very bold move.
So that frees up.
It would
60.
free up a hell of a lot of money, especially now that he's over the threshold and he's upped his contract. He's now the most because the problem is also with him being on such a high salary. Then you're going to have we're not going to renew most contracts again, are we? Let's face it. But you're still going to get everyone going, well, hang on a minute, you've just given Trent how much? And Virgil was on how much before you sold him? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, everything just goes up a level, and then that's how the cycle progresses.
I mean, here's the thing with the budget we've got now, we can afford Levi Colwill.
That's
if we
what I was
wanted
thinking.
Gvardiol as an alternative, we're 22 million away from Gvardiol. We've got enough in the wage, so we need to free up 22 million further to get Gvardiol, or we can just get Colwill. And so if we get Colwill, so we've got 15 million left in the budget then.
I think Colwill's an easier bet. It is interesting that the last decision was basically get rid of Van Dijk and bring in Colwill. That's quite.
We're on our own now. We're in uncharted territories. No Twitter rumors is going to help us now.
That's what we're saying. What are we saying?
We've gone completely off the deep end
now. Could you imagine here? Oh, goodness me. I mean, what would everyone say to that? So a midfield window in which we've bought Kefren Turan, Manu Kone, Alexis McAllister has already been brought in. We've got in Mickey van der Ven and Levi Colwill, completely revamping the back line and the midfield. I'm not sure how popular that Virgil decision will be, but we're paid to make the right decisions.
We don't have to do it. We can go back on it. It's not set in stone. We're just sort of playing around with the figures, and that's the beauty of this spreadsheet is that you can go well actually no, that makes more sense to not do that.
Just rip the Bayern Munich shirt out of Van Dijk's hands and be like, no, you're coming back, actually.
I'm still convinced that Jurgen is going to tap Jude Bellingham on the shoulder tonight and be like, actually, you're coming with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said to you earlier, he picked the number 5 shirt at Real Madrid because he's secretly a big Wijnaldum fan and he's going to eventually come to Liverpool. It's all just a conspiracy.
It's all a conspiracy, mate.
He is taking it a bit too far. I am getting a little bit insecure now that he's not going to sign for Liverpool, I have to admit.
Yeah, I know.
The signing of the contract for Real Madrid was like, a very worrying development. But
when he was holding the shirt in the Bernabeu, I started to think, actually, maybe not. Yeah.
Right. So are we going? So basically, are we going through with this Virgil van Dijk nosedive, or are we just sort of going, you can have your up to contract, you've deserved it?
We've got to give the fans. Got to give the fans one little curveball, don't we?
It's interesting. I suppose we're reacting to his wages being increased.
Exactly. Going, ooh.
The reaction.
Like we've got
the greedy bastard
right now.
Oh dear.
What's more money does he get rid? Oh no.
Bring in some young lad from Chelsea.
So we still got a fair chunk of. We could still do another deal maybe if we get rid of someone else cause even more damage or we could get someone on a free maybe. I don't know.
If we freed up some wage budget, because I'm thinking we've got 8 units left in the wage budget. With 4 more, we could get Marco Asensio on a free.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler, lad. Wait, no, it was the wage budget, wasn't it, that we need?
It's the wage budget. Yeah, we need wage.
Oh,
we need 4 units.
Come back, Tyler. Sorry.
Come back, Tyler. We need 4 units of wage.
4 units of wage. Okay.
Does Fabio Carvalho go? Does Fabio Carvalho go?
We're getting rid of Carvalho to make space for Asensio.
I mean, one's future-proof, the other isn't. But at the same time, I don't think Carvalho is going to bulk up enough for it to be worthwhile in the long term. He's a talented player. He'll do a job for someone, but I just don't like real life outside of the game. Real life, I don't think he has a long term future at Liverpool. Even though Klopp and the staff were like, no, we want him on a loan. My gut tells me that's just trying to keep his value up.
It comes down to whether, if we don't believe he's going to physically hit the right spec, can they get him to not be that kind of Kone Turan kind of player, but more of your McAllister kind of mould, where you're durable enough, but you're more important for how you sort of link up play, the technical side of the game, really. Because effectively, you're saying if you have one technical midfielder in that Liverpool midfield, and then 2 really, physical, dominant specimens. That's a decent balance. That's a balance we can all live with. The question is can can Carvalho be that player for Liverpool? Can he reliably be that player for Liverpool going forward?
I just don't think he is.
Sell him. He's gone. He's out of here.
Yeah.
All right, and you're out of here.
I don't think he's particularly crucial because we've got Elliott and we've got Bajcetic, we've got Jones. In an ideal world, that will be the midfield trio for the next 10 years. But, or at least at some point in the next 10 years. Marco Asensio, fantastic.
We've still got 29 million in the budget.
Oh, lads, here's one interesting. If we didn't go for Asensio, we have enough in the wage and enough in the transfer budget to afford Sadio Mane.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably gonna go for Sadio over Asensio based on pure ability.
You never want to go back, though. That's the thing. He left for a reason. Also, that whole incident at Bayern is a bit.
Oh, where he punched Sane.
Yeah, it's. Do you really want to be bringing that kind of baggage into the club, especially when he's already you'd already have enough baggage saying, welcome back. Your locker is being used by Darwin over there, but
Yeah, that's fair enough.
No, it's.
Are there any other sort of players that appeal on the list? Because assuming we decided to change our minds and not go for Marco Asensio and freed up 14 wage units in the budget, we still have 29 million to play with. The players we'd be able to bring in, I don't know, from midfield, you're looking at Milinkovic-Savic, Luka Suic, Sanderberg, who else is available? Alex Scott, of course. Tielemans on a free. Yunus Musa.
I think
Steve, I think you mentioned
all of those players over Asensio. To be fair, definitely right. Musa.
How would you narrow down the list? So if you had Musa, Milinkovic-Savic, Suic, Sanderberg, and Alex Scott. Who's most appealing of those
Musa
5?
Would be quite a bit in the distance ahead. I would think Milinkovic-Savic is probably the next one, but that is sort of like he's a bit unpredictable, I suppose. But there is a genuine superstar in there somewhere.
American as well.
Yes.
Opens up the market.
Yeah,
appeals to FSG.
Yeah, I would. That's what I would put forward anyway. Definitely over, with all respect, Asensio in 2023.
Yeah.
Oh, should we commit to Musa?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely feel better about the overall squad if we had Musa in the mix there. That's a lot of midfielders.
He's 5'10", Yunus Musa. Really good progressor of the ball. Loads of touches in the opposition penalty box. Tends to receive the ball quite high up the pitch as well. So again, it's one of those that strikes me as being more sort of influential in sort of the final third. The difficulty is with Jurgen Klopp, you never know. He looks at a player and goes, actually, I think you're better suited deeper. Because you look at Wijnaldum when he first joined, all those goals he used to score for Newcastle, and ended up being a really sort of good, more reliable presence, sort of deeper in the pitch, sort of recycling play, allowing his sort of teammates to thrive in that space. So you never know, really. There might be a player there in Musa you look at and think, actually, it's an option.
Yeah, I would. I mean, presented with the option of Asensio or Musa, it's Musa every day and probably twice on Sunday.
Musa it is.
What about you, Rick? Are you comfortable with that?
I've clicked the button. I'm happy.
He's clicked. He's committed.
I've committed. All I need to hear is you guys saying, "Yeah, I'm happy with them." And yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So as the situation stands, we have no transfer budget left. We have 8 wage units left to play with if we did fancy a free transfer at this stage.
If Virgil van Dijk gets another international appearances clause.
Deary me. Actually, having said that about the free transfers, I think the only free transfer we could actually go for if we fancied it would be Ron Robert Zieler. But I think we've not got rid of Kelleher, so not really a necessary one, I think, for us, is it?
I think getting rid of Verge is probably enough of a shake-up at the back. I would think.
Sell them all. Build a new squad.
I think what we'll say as well is Van Dijk forced us into getting
it was
rid
definitely
of him. It wasn't a decision. It made it more interesting to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of Van Dijk.
Christ, no.
Please, Virgil, if you are watching this, please never leave us.
Yeah, but you know someone's going to probably clip that scene and be like, these guys want to get rid of Van Dijk.
Yeah. I can't wait for this to come out in an Echo piece. I want to sell Virgil van Dijk. The fume. Oh, goodness me.
No.
Dare I say it, I think we have our completed transfer window.
A new look team, and the most senior defender is between Kanate and often injured Gomez. It's an interesting shake-up at the back, but I'm sure the two new lads will, make strides.
I'm happy with that.
Should we go with right from the top, the players we've agreed to sell? So after much deliberation, we have agreed to sell Fabio Carvalho, keeping the rest in those top options. Going down the list after some serious thought, we decided to sell Jean Matip first, along with Reece Williams, Connor Bradley, Nat Phillips, Luke Chambers, Owen Beck. Our hands were forced after a international appearances contract threshold for Virgil van Dijk, upping his salary units to 14. So we decided to sell Virgil, which freed up a rather good chunk in a transfer and wage budget. Our ins directly addressing the back line. First and foremost, we brought in Chelsea youngster Levi Colwill after an impressive loan season with Brighton and Hove Albion. Lots really to look forward to there, I'm sure. And we also brought in fellow youngster from Wolfsburg, Mickey van der Ven, coming in as more of your Joel Matip long-term replacement. In midfield, it is all change again. Loads coming in. Everyone thought 3, possibly 2. We have gone for 4. Brand spanking new midfielders. We've appeased our overlords, Fenway Sports Group, with the signing of USMNT international Yunus Musa of Valencia. We've also brought in Alexis McAllister as promised. Our 2 further signings there, as I'm sure shock, horror, were heavily linked targets, Manu Kone and Kefren Turam of Borussia Mönchengladbach and Nice, respectively. We have ignored the attacking midfielders and forwards. We did briefly consider Marco Asensio, who's now a free agent, but we thought, actually, you know what, we'd rather have 4 midfielders. I think it's fair to say we're rather happy with the results. None of our transfer budget left. We do have some wage free there to play with, so we've looked after things quite well. I think there's room there for everyone to work with in case we want to offer some new contracts throughout the season. So I think a well-deserved pat on the back for us all there.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously our forward line is phenomenal with a refreshed midfield. That's going to be lovely. Obviously, it's a bit shaky at the back, but when Virgil van Dijk, rudely forces his way out of the club, that's going to happen anyway. So, we've done the best we can, I think.
I'm disappointed that they even put that clause in the contract in the first place, but what can you do?
Let's get out of our hands.
Hey, listen. We can't account for the prior actions of the prior transfer committee. Jörg Schmatke served us very well for 2 weeks, but we had to come in. And we had to just make some difficult calls there. There was a curveball. We can't do anything about it, lads. Too often, there's been complaints over a lack of ruthlessness in transfer decisions. Well, you wanted ruthlessness, you got ruthlessness. We sacked off arguably the best centre half of his generation in Virgil van Dijk, and brought in the man that I have badgered everyone about for almost half this entire call, and that is, of course, Levi Colwill of Chelsea a very, very bright future and statistically deemed very similar to Virgil van Dijk. We'll see how that one plays out. I will take full responsibility if it doesn't work out. But I think we're all pretty confident in the range of the signings that we've brought in here for Liverpool Football Club. You've been watching us here on the Empire of the Cop podcast. Feel free to give us a like, a comment if you agree with any of our signings, and be sure to give us a subscribe too if you've enjoyed this latest Transfer Committee episode, and join us again in a year's time where we discuss presumably with another limited budget, and we're making similarly potentially disastrous calls about the future of the club and its transfer policy. We've had the editor of Flash Score here. We've had Ste Carson. We've had social media god Rick Elliott, and I have been your host. You've been upgraded. After that call with Virgil van Dijk, I felt I needed to praise your boldness. I've been your host here, Farrell Keeling. Be sure to give us a little like on YouTube, and this will be going up on the Substack as well if you're keeping track there. But for now, that is everything. All changes here at Liverpool Football Club. We've made some difficult decisions. I hope you agree with them, but feel free to disagree. And thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.